All right.
Mr. Heyman, what was your part of the project that you were supposed to take on?
So, Mr. Blackie, um, so here's my main function. I wanted to make a class that was project based, where people actually did and created something instead of doing a bunch of hypothetical or theoretical pieces of busy work.
Okay.
I wanted to make something. So I was thinking project based, and I was thinking from discussions that I'd had with people working out at Page Pond, or talking with Mr. Parsons, he suggested a courtyard renovation, or I really wanted to make an electric bike, but I think I was the only one.
Okay.
So I came up with ideas, and I did some research on other places that had done this, and it seemed like a thing that we could do. And Mrs. Murphy was on board, and she let me run with it, and that takes us to where we are today.
Sweet.
Yeah.
What was your first impression when the teacher discussed the project?
Well, being the teacher that's discussing the project, I was psyched. You have no idea. Like I was like, "You're really gonna let me do this? Like I can do this as a job?"
Yeah.
And I was pumped, and I wanted to really just make something and just kind of go non-traditional. And because my philosophy has always been that I don't care about what you could learn in the future. I care the most about what you can do right now. I read a bunch of research on gaming in the classroom, and I really like the idea where you can make a ton of mistakes, and just like with video games, you get a do-over and a do-over and a do-over. I really liked that. So that was my first impression. I wanted to make something like that happen.
No, what do you know now?
What I know now is that that didn't quite go the way that I'd hoped. Like I think, I mean, you were there.
Yep.
Like the first few weeks, super exciting. This is interesting. It was creative. It's like, what if, what if, what if?
Yep.
And then once things started coming into like, okay, I need to gather information. Oh, it started to seem like it slowed way down.
Exactly.
And then how one would represent information, what it is that they know, or the work that they were doing. What I know now is I didn't necessarily provide regular structures for that opportunity, um, which was hard on me because I was asking students for this. And I think it was hard on students
Okay.
because they're like, I'd like to give you that. I just don't know how. So I didn't make a method for that. So I know that now that's a thing that I need to work on to include in the next round.
Okay. What's your ideas for like what's next?
So I think we'll cover this when we start talking about reading. But I did some reading about how projects get proposed at places like Dartmouth College
Yep.
or Penn State. And one of the things that I've discovered through reading proposal processes, is that everything has deadlines and timelines and like little benchmarks so people can check themselves along the way. I think I learned through comparing to what the Ivy Leagues are doing
Yep.
that I need to do that too. I need to include certain benchmarks and certain ways that people can measure their own progress, and then I can measure what they measure.
So what books have you read this quarter?
I've read a ton of books. I've read more than I usually do. So what I did is I broke this into a list of two separate lists.
Okay.
The first one is literature. I read a book called Boys in the Boat, and then after that, I'm almost done with Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, which has nothing to do with Zen and nothing to do with motorcycle maintenance,
Okay.
but it has everything to do with philosophy, which is really interesting for me. I read a silly book called Ranger Confidential, and at the beginning of the semester, I finished a book called Ishmael, which also has to do with philosophy. It's about this big gorilla in a room that's interviewing a student, kind of like what you're doing to me.
Okay.
Um, when it comes to nonfiction, I've read a bunch of proposals because I felt like I needed to.
Yep.
That's the thing I didn't have going in. And then at the very start of the semester, I read this article called A Review of Research on Project-Based Learning. It seemed like if I was running a project-based class, I wanted to see what other people were doing.
Exactly.
And that was super influential. Turns out it could have been more influential. And then most recently, I've been reading a lot about competencies because we have a marking period coming up.
Exactly.
So I want to make sure that I'm on top of those pieces. I ask good questions.
Yep. Can we go through the I can statements? Like, what can you do for writing?
So So a lot. For writing. All right. So if I flip through some of the I can statements, one of the things that I can do is I have been writing a lot of explanations. You can see it in some of the videos that I've made.
Yep.
I've explained the explanation process. I've explained the argument writing process. And one of the things that I can do is I can provide that structure of an explanation. I can provide the main idea. I can provide a closure. Um, I can, in creating separate videos, I can create that order and format that would be necessary in the writing process. What I haven't done is I haven't written any arguments yet. Um, I would like to. I have a plan for trying to write an argument for seeing if we can get the school district to buy a mini bus. So instead of renting a bus for small class trips,
Just get one.
the school would have one
Yep.
for outing club or quest classes or whatever.
Yep.
That would be a convenience to us. So that's the argument I'm going to try and pose next quarter.
Just like we did for the writing, we're gonna go. Can we go over the I can statement for languages?
For language, that one's a little trickier for me. I can't at this point. I can't show a lot, but what I can show is that I've used and I've adapted a lot of the Avid language. I tried to bring that into my writing. So, for example, I never really used the term forecast before,
Yep.
but now I use it regularly in my writing structures. When it comes to having an anchor statement, I never really used that before in my writing, but now that's part of my language. So I've tried to use a lot of the Avid language so that it's consistent from class to class to class, assignment to assignment to assignment.
Mhm.
So I can't show a wide breadth at this point, but I would say that Avid has sculpted my language.
Can we go over the speaking in languages for I can?
I think you're experiencing this right
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
I'm listening to what you're asking. I'm trying to convey what it is that I've learned.
Reveal your green goal sheets.
So every week we start out with green goal sheets, and so I reviewed them all, and I looked back, and one of the goals that I had every week was around the idea of what can I create. And sometimes I've created a structure or a class or an environment, but in a lot of cases I haven't hit. I've really come up short on a lot of my goals for each week. I think the number one thing that I have done is I've created an environment where people can come in and they can work. But I think in terms of what I've created in terms of their success, I may not have created benchmarks. And I think I've come up short there. So if I were to rate it on the 1 to 5 scale,
Yep.
At the beginning of the year, I would have gone with a 5. I was all in.
Yep.
Today, as we approach day 40,
Yeah.
I'm thinking 3. I'm middle of the road. I've initiated a lot of things, but I haven't completed a lot of my goals. Good so far?
Good.
All right. I did have some notes that I wanted to cover. One of the things that I noticed from reading and writing is I've brought in a lot of those key ideas. Like that's the first thing that's in both the reading and writing competencies. I tried to bring those into every one of my writing assignments, and I thought that was a major push. If I that I could try and show through my explanations. For example, if I were writing an explanation and I would make a video on how to write an explanation, it strikes me that it would be super important to have the key ideas and
Yep.
details. So I tried to transfer a lot of what I read into a lot of what I've written. So I thought that was a big connection. And I think if I were to show one piece of evidence for what I've done, I think the videos
Yeah.
are the major thing that I'm trying to test myself with this year. And that's it.
Okay.
Cool. Thanks, Ryan.
You're welcome.